Hey everyone, it's Blake. Welcome in to episode number 68 of our WWE 2021 Save and TEW 2020. This is our State of WWE for December 2021. And I hope you enjoyed Survivor Series. I know a lot of people gave some comments on that. Great feedback as usual, and I always appreciate it. And so yes, if you haven't watched Survivor Series yet, definitely check that out because there will be some spoilers coming out of it as we go through the State of WWE here. But be sure to check out Survivor Series. I was very pleased with how it turned out, and we will see how it turned out from a rating standpoint as we start to go through popularity, size, all that good stuff. And by the way, just as a teaser, later on in this video, we're going to talk about something else I have in the works, a new save I'm going to do, and we'll talk about the WCW 1998 when and what happened with that, but we'll get into that a little bit later on. So let's get started here. As always, we will go through our State of WWE, see where things stand. If we look at the size to begin with here, you can see that we've jumped up a bit. We still have our cooling down period, which will end in 5 days. So by the time we get to Smackdown, a couple episodes from now, we will be out of the cooling down period. Our popularity has really started to grow a bit. I think if we look at our progress here, you can see kind of where we've gone. Of course, we had the inevitable, which I said from the beginning. We would drop down a little bit, and then we would start to rise back up, and we can see that here, starting to make some waves. We get into the 80s here. So we will be in good shape, and so again, we will, we're going to rise back up to big once we get out of this cooling down period. So that's where we're going to be at there. If you're curious about other areas like Canada, we're, it's the same basically. That's kind of how things are growing there on that. So size, we have nothing to worry about. We're still the biggest company in the world, and we are in very good shape on that. So let's look quickly at our creative, and you can see kind of who our top stars are. And that continues to be, of course, The Rock, who continues to be on the roster, folks. But if you watch Survivor Series, you know that The Rock is done for. John Cena 2, Lesnar 3, Reigns 4, Lynch 5. As I said with Lesnar, to be honest with you, I still don't really have a whole lot in mind for Lesnar. I have one thing that I'm thinking about doing with Lesnar, but for right now, he just has done nothing in the series. And so if you're a Brock Lesnar fan, I'm sorry. But that's just kind of where things have been at. And yeah, I'm not going to click on the next big things or hot prospects because there are some ones that we are hiding in there that I don't want you to see just yet. If we look at the who's hot, who's not, that's what we usually go through here. Cesaro, how about this? Cesaro's at the very top. So I know that, I've been mentioned kind of looking at Cesaro recently, he hasn't felt as hot. Just booking-wise, as he did when he was getting, the WWE Championship match and all that kind of run he had in, what was that? Was that October, I think? But if you're a Cesaro fan, I'll just say be patient because more to come on the Cesaro front here soon. And so Cesaro at the very top, Drew McIntyre, of course, getting the big win over Bray Wyatt in Hell in a Cell at Survivor Series. He is at number 2. Bianca still has been in here pretty much the entire time. Reigns, of course, is there, and Big E, who got the big win over Omos. So quite a group here in our Who's Hot section. Who's not? Well, it's still The Miz. It's been that way for a while, and we said The Miz was in there even while he was injured. He just hasn't gotten out of it yet, and probably doesn't help that he loses at Survivor Series in that SmackDown 10-man tag. So that's where things are at on the creative front. If you want to look quickly at our titles, and then we'll get into the popularity. I know that's the most exciting part. We'll get to that in a minute, but our WWE Championship, Edge is still the champ. And if we look at the prestige, it's dropped down a little bit, but, I mean, come on, it's 1 point. Intercontinental Championship, Keith Lee is still our champ after Survivor Series. Belt's kind of gone up since Keith Lee's won it, so that's nice to know. Raw Women's Championship, Bayley, who we're having some fun with right now. I know she hasn't. I mean, look, she's only defended the title one time, and she's been the champ for 85 days. That's going to kind of play into the story of what we're doing with her moving forward. But, yeah, obviously she could defend it a little bit more, but it's okay. Belair still there. Title goes up 1. Our tag team championships, which I know have also only been defended one time in 85 days. I know that won't make some people happy, but we kind of had to go on a sidebar with Kofi and Xavier Woods going into the Big E and Omos thing. It was just a natural fit to put them in there. So tag titles have dropped a little bit, but I will say the tag titles are going to get kind of reinvigorated here moving forward, as we have got some pretty exciting stuff in the works for the tag team championships. I've got the tag team title scenario booked out all the way through WrestleMania. So, yeah, I think that we will be having a lot of fun with the tag team division over the next several months. And so I know it's been kind of a holding pattern, but we really need to plug them in to the Big E Omos stuff, and that kind of put it back on that. And by the way, next challengers for Kofi and Xavier will be on Smackdown. We haven't gotten there yet. United States Championship, Kevin Owens, 66. I mean, let's be honest. This is the belt that's improved the most in terms of, prestige since we started this thing, but that's no surprise if you think of how many matches Owens has had. 11 successful defenses. He's been the champ now for 140 days. He won it week 1, July. So he's had, I think of our championship reigns, outside of Reigns, I think Owens has definitely had the second best in terms of our champions at this point. Speaking of reigns, 83 overall. Here, it's kind of stayed the same. So no surprise, he's defended it 16 times. Of course, it's been going on now 427 days as the Universal Champion for Roman Reigns. And then our women's tag team titles also there. And we will, they've had 2 successful defenses. Prestige has gone up 1, but look, I mean, it kind of is what it is. We're still building our women's division, and we'll have more coming out of the Mae Young Classic. So there are that kind of where that stands. Our storylines, if you want to just kind of have a quick idea where those stand after Survivor Series. 72 here for Big E and Omos, which is way better than I would have expected. Drew and Bray dropped down to a 76 on this one. That came, I think, just out of, kind of looking at this segment here where if you missed Survivor Series, Aleister Black is back, and we've got a lot to get into on that. Kevin Owens challenged 74. Roman Reigns drops down to an 81. That was a 90, but it comes out of, some of these segments towards the end. Mae Young Classic at a 58. This will get better, I think, here as we move forward. Nice rating here, 69 for Keith Lee, Samoa Joe, 65 for the Lucha Bros and Ray, which that will kind of split off now. Rated RKO and the Bullet Club, 76 on that one. So, everything's kind of in that 70s range. That's kind of what you would expect. So, no issues with that there. All right. Let's now look, and we're actually, before we get into the popularity, I know I always say this, but let's look at what AEW is doing. If you're curious, let's see what we need to get into here if you want to kind of have an idea of where things are at with AEW. Their popularity is still in the 60s. If you want to look at the progress here, they have really not gone anywhere at all. It's just not happening. So that is where they are at. If you want to look at where AEW's champions, Pac is the TNT champ. Kylan King still the women's champion. She's had it for 96 days now. Jericho, the world champ. FTR is the tag champs. So there is, again, we have no competition. There's no point. Why are we even wasting our time on this? We have no competition in this game. It is us and everyone else. So, and I think they did have some time slot changes as well on that. Let's see, we can actually look at some of their show histories here. And, you can see, like, some of their shows, like Dynamite's doing a 57, 66, Full Gear at a 72. I don't remember. I think we went through Full Gear. I want to say we talked about that, but so it was, not a bad show, but AEW is just not really getting any ground. So it's what you get when you're booking against the champs here in WWE. But all right, let's go to the roster. This is what we always find fascinating. Who has gotten the popularity boosts for this go around here as we go into December? Let's take a look. All right, as always, I'm gonna divide this by the brands. That way I don't have any surprises that are in here that will spoil anything that I have in the works moving forward. So let's take a look. Adam Cole is on Raw, of course, and he's in the 60s now. If we look at kind of where Adam Cole has been at, he's starting to go up. We mentioned that with him when he came over the Bullet Club. We said, look, it's going to take some time with these guys because coming out of NXT, some of these guys are in the 50s, and it's just hard to get them up very quickly. But Adam Cole is starting to make his move here, so he's going into the 60s along with Bullet Club's his fellow Bullet Club member AJ Styles. I think he's had a couple bit of a so Styles has taken a really big jump here in over the past month. So we see the jump that he's made here from November to December. So he is heading in the right direction for sure. Angelo Dawkins is an interesting one because we know what all we've had going on with the Street Profits, and so he's someone as well. If we look at our trajectory here, he has made a big jump. We'll get him into the 60s probably this month based on what we have going on with the Street Profits. Bayley, our women's champion, all in the green here. I love to see that. And you can see as well, I mean, Bayley takes a huge jump from November. So, this is what we want. Like, this was my initial goal, was to get so many people into this green to where you've got a lot of people that are in the 70s, 80s range. Like, that's what we want. We want as many people as we can get in the 70s and 80s. Like, because, you're going to have those rare people in the 90s. Like, you'll see in a minute. Reigns is not even in the 90s after beating The Rock. But if we can get a lot of people in the 70s and 80s, that to me is a success. So, Big E, speaking of which, here you go. Now, Big E is up to 82 as his top popularity. And again, he has just kind of methodically been doing this. But if you look at where we started, 64 in June, 82 now in December, 6 months later. Pretty incredible jump for Big E. So he's actually almost close to one of our top 5 stars in the company right now for Big E. Cesaro, still in the mid-70s, which I think that's kind of where we had him before. Yeah, so he's not really gone a whole lot. As I said, I think that may change this month. I think he may jump up a little bit. But we'll see. Chad Gable, still in the 40s. So Gable's had a lot going on here, but he's not really gained a lot of ground recently. I think that will change, and if you're a Chad Gable fan, stay tuned. Daniel Bryan in the 84s here, so he's 84s across the board. That's going to drop a little bit. Actually, I thought he was 85 at one point, but he's not. All right, so Bryan's kind of stays the same. Anyone else of note? Dominic's popularity is not great. It's just not. So, obviously, if you remember how the Survivor Series match ended with Rey and Penta, we have some plans for Dominic moving forward, but boy, we're going to have to get creative here because his overness is just not there. Edge in the 84s as well, just like Daniel Bryan. Of course, he's dropped one, but what do I care? He's our WWE champion. And so he's in good shape. Balor, another interesting one. There we go. Starting to see the green with Balor. So he starts to make his jump up from NXT. Goes up one here, and I think that will continue to be the case. So our goal is to get him into the 70s, which I think we will going into January. Let's look here. Kevin Owens. Look at this, folks. 85. So he started to hit that popularity. Look at this. Like, Kevin Owens he's one of our top 5 superstars in the company right now. And we see how far he's come since starting as a 70. Now he is Roman Reigns level in the Northwest. So that is something to behold there for Kevin Owens. So clearly we have done the right thing with him. He's been fantastic. And if we look at our history here, 12 wins, 2 draws, 1 loss. So, he is just, he's given us some really good stuff from a match standpoint. So, Owens in great shape. Liv Morgan almost up to the 50s. I think she's made. We'll quickly run through some of these. I know we're gonna go long if we don't. Here's the one you're waiting for. Montez Ford. 64 is across there, 65, 64 in that range. So he takes another big jump. He was the winner in our Survivor Series 10-man tag, the surprising sole survivor, Montez Ford. So he's jumped up to the mid-60s. And again, I think he will probably get close to 70 by the time we're done with January if everything goes according to plan. So, yes. So that's worth noting. MVP is an interesting one because he's kind of, been in that manager role with Omos. He's, jumping up to the 60s now, so that's good. Speaking of Omos, 49s. He's not yet to 50. But considering where he started, big jump from June to where he is now in December. I have plans for Omos moving forward, but I think his loss to Big E at Survivor Series should kind of give you an idea of maybe where he's going to be slotted for him. Penta, good. Jumping up into the mid-60s now because we said, look at where they were. They were not really going anywhere in AEW, and when we brought them in October, they were at low 50s, but now Penta has jumped up even to the mid-60s here in the Southwest. So this is great moving forward for Penta. I think he'll get close to 70 next month. Randy Orton's still at 80. He is the only person, I think, that stayed the exact same throughout this entire deal. So Randy Orton, still 80s across the board there. Ray Phoenix also, boy, Ray Phoenix jumped up to a 68 here in this one. So he's jumping up big as well. So, yeah, the Lucha Brothers heading in the right direction. Ray also in the 60s now. He's lost some popularity, but Ray's kind of been all over the board. So not a whole lot to note there. Sasha into the 70s. That is good. I think that's a big, yeah. So that's a nice jump for Sasha based on where she's at. Sheamus, 75s, those are about the same. And I guess Toni Storm is the other notable one based on what we've been doing with her recently. Yeah, so Toni Storm, a bit of a jump, but she had the bigger jump from October to November. She did lose, I think, a match or two maybe. But tag team matches, I think, were what she was involved in. So she loses one here, but that's okay. Mae Young Classic coming up. All right, let's go to SmackDown. And on SmackDown, Alexa Bliss in the 60s. I think that's, yeah, about the same. So she's like Orton. She hasn't moved at all. Let's see. Asuka, here's another one. So Asuka's kind of in the upper 60s now. I think she's okay. She's kind of stayed the same too, where she's at on that. Belair still, I think, is about the same. She didn't really have, so she jumped up a little bit there, but she didn't really have any significant matches, I guess, last month. Bray Wyatt, 79s across the board. That's probably a drop from an 80. No, okay, never mind. He stayed about the same. So that's good. He didn't really lose anything. Charlotte Flair, as we said, has just been saddled with poor momentum and all this other stuff. And so, not a whole lot's changed for Charlotte. She's just kind of is where she is right now. Damien Priest, here's the other big one. So Priest comes out with another win and, didn't really jump up much. He gains a couple spots here and there, but still, remember, considering where he was in June, 48 to 74, one of our biggest success stories to this point, and we have him right where we want him based on where we have storylines heading after this. Drew McIntyre, easily one of our top stars in the company, 85 across the board here, and as you can see, that's really been the big jump for McIntyre, so he is, I think, a top 3 probably for us at this point in terms of just active stars. So clearly we have plenty for Drew to do here moving forward. Let's see who else we have here. Jeff Hardy, kind of in the mid-60s. I think that's about where he's at. The Usos, they're interesting, right? Jay, 73 here is his top popularity, and you can see Jay got a big boost last month, and when you think about all the important segments he was in, that's understandable because he was in a lot of important stuff over the past month. So Jay jumps up into the 70s. Boom, there gives us another one. Jimmy's almost there, as I think he would have probably gained some. No, okay, so Jimmy actually lost a little bit, but I think he, there was something, I don't remember. I think he lost a match somewhere. I don't remember what it was. But Cena, still doing just fine, 86s, so that's about normal for John Cena. Keith Lee, mid-60s now. He's another NXT guy. We brought up who was in the low 50s. Now he's in the mid-60s, or excuse me, upper 50s. Now he's in the mid-60s, so that's good. He's making progress on that. Who else do we have here? Let's see. What about Heyman? Heyman's, he's in a lot of segments, right? So, yeah, I didn't really gain a whole lot, but it was at least worth looking at. Ricochet, everyone's favorite. Ricochet is still not over for anything. My goodness, this guy is not over at all. Look at this. Think of all the stuff we've done with Ricochet, and he has not moved a single percentage popularity point in anything. He's just stayed the exact same. So maybe we'll have something for him on the tag team with Jeff Hardy, but Ricochet's going nowhere. On the flip side of that, Roman Reigns still at an 85 across the board. He didn't get anything out of the Rock thing. He is, as well as not really gained any more popularity. So I think that kind of shows you kind of where things are at for him in terms of the popularity and kind of where he stayed. But, again, I have no issues with that. Sami Zayn, who, let's be honest, he would have gained a popularity boost had we actually implemented the pin on John Cena, but we did that as an angle since we couldn't do it in the match because Cena didn't want to lose to him. But, still, Sammy's in the upper 60s, and he's okay. He's still very entertaining, and we'll take that. Joe's in the low 60s, low 60s for Joe. Rollins, 80 across the board. Rollins did absolutely nothing last month, as you recall, because we left him out the entire month on purpose, knowing that he was going to make his triumphant return at Survivor Series to try to cash in on Reigns. And now, of course, Rollins has flipped to being a babyface. And yeah, I think that Rollins' popularity will continue to move in the right direction. Nakamura, 60s across the board for him. The Miz, as we said, struggling with momentum right now, but he's still fine from a popularity standpoint. So there are your popularity ratings for this month, and yeah, I think some interesting ones to look at. Montez Ford, Damien Priest, Kevin Owens, I thought was another one. That's really, I mean, he's there now. Like he's a top star in the company. And so, yeah, I think that's great for Kevin Owens. And so I think that he's going to be in a pretty good spot moving forward with what we have planned with him. Yeah, just a lot of good stuff. And I think that we look at kind of our history of our shows and all those things. I mean, we've done some really good ratings and where things are at, to this point. And if we look at our upcoming schedule, we know that what we have next will be the Mae Young Classic, Night 1 and then Night 2, back-to-back days. That's going to be a fun and just important shows. Those are going to be very important. So we've got our bracket sets. The last person was filled in at Survivor, or excuse me, not the last person. Our first mystery opponent was filled in with Lita taking on Sasha Banks. And we have 2 mystery opponents that will be announced for both Charlotte Flair and Shayna Baszler. Their mystery opponents will be announced at the Mae Young Classic on Night 1. So that'll be there. And then we got this is a busy month, guys. We got 2 big events to book for the Mae Young Classic, Night 1 and 2. And then we've got Armageddon, which will be a Raw-branded pay-per-view. So we got a lot of stuff to do this month. I mean, this is going to be our busiest month yet in terms of the shows that we have to book because we do have 3 major shows, basically, to book in this month. In addition to 2 weekly shows. So I'm setting myself, giving myself a little time, put all this stuff together. But we're gonna try to pace ourselves a little bit here, knowing that we have a lot of big things to book this month. A big branded pay-per-view, and the Mae Young Classic as well. And then before you know it, we will be getting closer to the Royal Rumble. And when you think about it, Smackdown is on the road to the Royal Rumble right now, since they don't have a pay-per-view this month outside of the women that will compete in the Mae Young Classic. So, yeah. It's just a lot happening in this save right now. If you're curious, and we'll just kind of wrap it up with this, and then I'll get into what I said earlier. My reputation has gone up a little bit. If you want to see the stats and where we are, 54 shows to this point. Best match was Roman Reigns and The Rock, 89 at Survivor Series. Survivor Series with our highest attendance. And, so we see all of our highest stuff really is still, in the Novembers, although our best show was still that SmackDown we did in September. I don't remember exactly what show that was, but yes, it did very well. So those are our stats at this point. But there you go. There is the state of WWE for December 2021. And anything if I forgot, just let me know, and we'll get into it on the next episode when we do our Raw one there. But as I teased earlier, I am in the process of doing a new save. And I know the last one I did was not exactly a success because we stopped after 5 or 6 episodes. The reasoning being is that I started to look a bit at the data, and I did not think the data was probably going to be heading in the direction that was going to make it a sustainable save. And that's not a knock on the mod or anything. It's just I think I started to realize that this was going to be one where I think it's a mod actually that's not being updated. And I don't think it's been updated in a long time. And there are just some things in there that I would probably like to tweak to make sure I don't get to the point to where the save is not. I'm trying to say how to say this, where I'm going to get stuck basically. And I think I was starting to see some of those things as I started to plot some things out and look at some of the data after some of the shows that we had already done for WCW. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and give you kind of a teaser on what we're going to be doing with another save. And I'm going to do this one the right way in that I'm going to go ahead and record some episodes in advance. And I do mean quite a few episodes in advance. That way I can kind of spread these out so we can kind of have a recurring save going. And it's because I have built out things enough in this series to where I have a bit more time now to be able to push into another save that is not going to be as extensive. And when I tell you what that save is going to be here in just a second, you'll know that I'm not going to be booking as many shows extensively, by no means, because I've gotten ahead on this one in terms of I already have things pretty much plotted out. I just have to put the shows in for this. Like I said, I pretty much have our entire save here. I have things pretty much plotted out until WrestleMania. And I just have to plug in the stuff into the system and hope no one gets injured. No Raw curse back. But so that's what we're going to do, and I'm just going to go ahead and kind of give you an idea right now of where we're headed on the new save, and I'm going to do it visually, not just telling you what it is. I'm going to kind of give you an idea of a new save I'm going to try to put together, and let's just go ahead and take a look at what that's going to be. All right, so and again, I know this won't be for everyone, and listen, it doesn't have to be for everyone. I like trying out some new saves and playing with some different mods, and I can tell you right now, I've had a ton of fun just playing around with this one over the past little while, and I finally decided, hey, I wanted to experiment. I wanted to make sure I could make this sort of a long-term save versus a short-term one, and I think it's going to be it's going to work out well, because this is one, too, that the mod is being updated pretty regularly, and I think that this one is going to, kind of fit how I want to do another save, and so it's going to be 1992. I know, again, that won't be for everyone, but for the old school wrestling fans out there, I am going to do 1992, and I'm going to tell you, I haven't decided yet if it's going to be WWF or WCW. It's going to be one of the two, but I think it's probably going to be the WWF, because I think that I'm very intrigued by what is going to take place in this kind of range, going all the way back. I've been watching a lot of old school stuff on Peacock lately, and I've just gotten into a really good rhythm, and I just think that it's one where it's going to be a lot of fun to try to do a series like this. But we'll get into that on a future episode once I start putting those out. And I think it'll be one that some of you guys will enjoy. Like I said, the WCW 1998 one, I'm not saying that it's gone for good, but I need to play around with some of the data and maybe change some things a little bit on that. To make it what I think will be a probably more entertaining save from a game standpoint. But that will take a little time probably on my part, as you know. It's not always my specialty. So I'm going to kind of hold off on doing anything else on WCW 1998 right now, but I'm going to leave it as active on the channel. That way, if we do revisit it, I've still got the save and all that stuff. But this next one, I think, could be a lot of fun, and I will say it's going to be more for the old school wrestling fans. It will, it's one that I think if you enjoyed the way old school wrestling was booked, it will still be a big company. I will tell you that. But if you enjoyed kind of the old school nature of wrestling, less pay-per-views, more kind of big shows, big events, those kind of things, I think you'll enjoy this one. So we'll get into that on a future episode, and I might put the introduction episode of that one out soon. Just kind of depends on when I get to it, but so we'll get into that. But on the next episode of this series, it will be Raw for December, week 1. And as always, be sure to like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And again, I appreciate you guys' feedback. I also appreciate you being patient with me. We got the Survivor Series, and now we start to push to the Mae Young Classic. Yes, I appreciate it as always. And on the next episode, it will be Raw for week 1 in December.